Today you are going to learn about a function and domain. A function is a line that goes from left to right. It can be straight, or it can be curved, it can be zigzagged. Here's a way to test whether or not it's a function. It's called a vertical line test. So I have a vertical line, and I'm going to place it somewhere along the possible function. If it passes through the function at one point, then yes, it is a function. So I could put it over here at this one. That vertical line passes through the curved line at just one point, so it's a function. Same with this one. If I put it along that zigzag line, the vertical line passes through it just once, so it's a function. These ones are not functions. If I take this vertical line and I place it right here, it is going to pass through the zigzag 2 times. Okay, so this one is not going from left to right. It goes from left to right to left. That's too silly. We can't go back into the past. Okay, and then this one here, also not a function. That vertical line passes through it once, twice, 3 times. You won't always be given a picture of the graph. Sometimes you'll be given a table instead. So what you need to do is you need to look at the x values. In the x column, none of the numbers can repeat. Let's say you have a calculator and you're pressing the number 3. You're going to expect it to do the same thing every single time. So like if you did +3, you wanted to add 3 to your number. Let's say you did +3 and something super silly happened and you got something outrageous. That would not make sense. That would not be a function. So we cannot have the same thing repeat in the x column, especially if it has something different with it in the y column. Okay, but for this first example, every single x value is different, so yes, that one is a function. For this next one, 1 repeats and 2 repeats. Now, maybe it's possible that the person who did 1 accidentally just put it there twice because it has at least the same output, so that kind of makes sense. But for the 2, one of the times it's 8 and one of the times it's 7. That is silly. You couldn't push 2 on a calculator and have something different each time. That does not make sense, so that's not a function. Okay? But it is okay if something in the y column repeats. You just can't have anything in the x column repeat. All right, the next thing we need to know about is called domain. Domain is all the possible x values. All right, so if we were to make a table of values for the points along this first line, there is a point at the coordinate -2, -2. There's also a point at -1, -1, 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 2, etc. Okay, so the smallest x value is -2. The largest would end up being 4, which would be this point up here. Okay, since those are closed dots, x could be equal to those numbers. Okay, and it also could include all of the decimals or fractions in between all of those. Okay, so basically it means the value of x in this first column here, those values are going to be between -2 and 4, but can also include -2 and 4. All right, so for the second one here, if we were to make a table of values for this one, for x and y, so it would go between -6 and +5, but it cannot be equal to -6. So maybe it's -5.5 is one, -4, -2, and all the possibilities up to close to 5. I'm going to do 4.99. That's kind of hard to see. Okay? So those x values are anywhere in between -6 and 5, but not exactly equal to those numbers. Okay? All right, for the third one, those x values, they would go from -2, and it could be equal to -2 because that is underlined right there. So -1, 0, 1, but not 2. I can get very, very close to 2, but not exactly 2. Okay? So let's take a closer look at this graph here. So this first dot is above -2 on that x-axis, which is where this comes from. and it is a closed circle, so it's less than or equal to x. And then this next dot is at +2, which is where this +2 comes from, but it's an open circle, so this symbol here is not underlined. All right, let's take a peek at a few more. All right, so this one is slightly different. So these ones before, x was between these two dots. But this one, we only have one dot. So the values of x for this one are less than 1. If we were to make a table of values, oops, that should say y, the x values could be 1, 0, -1, -2, keep on going all the way to infinity. X has to be less than or equal to 1, and it doesn't really matter what those y values are. On the flip side, for this one, it's going in the opposite direction. It's going more towards the future. So x is greater than -1. So that dot or that open circle is above, not above, technically it's right below -1 from the x-axis. It's an open circle, so greater than, and then -1. We have a few more silly ones. All right, this one is a horizontal line. It's going on forever and ever and ever. So points along that line, x, y. Okay, so we have a point here at 0, 3.5. I'm just going to round that to 3.5. 1, 3.5. 2, 3.5. It's really hard to write on my screen here. Woo, it's sloppy. Okay, so no matter what our x value is, the y value is always going to be 3.5, but I can literally choose any x value there is. Positive, negative, fraction, decimal, does not matter. So the answer to that would be that the domain or values of x is all real numbers. Now, technically, the symbol for that is 2 parallel lines turned into an R, but for the sake of using a computer, we're just going to use a capital R. All right, the next one is with a vertical line. So straight up and down. We make a table of values for that one. All right, we could have -2.50, -2.5, yikes, 1, -2.5. Just pretend this is actually legible, 2, etc. So no matter what, my x value is always going to be -2.5. So for this one, x is equal to -2.5. For your classwork today, you're going to have two parts. The first one, you're going to just say if something is a function, yes or no. Let me pull up the second one a second. All right, I apologize that this video is so long, yikes. All right, so you're going to have a graph here. It's giving you x right here, so you're going to keep that x there. Then you're going to choose which number is furthest to the left. So for this one, it would be a -1. And then you're going to choose the symbol that would be the most appropriate. Same for right here. So you have to click that little arrow and then the final number. Okay. You might not have anything in these first two boxes. So like, let's say you get one that's x is equal to all real numbers. Then you would say x is equal to the capital R. Leave these ones blank. And if you have all of those components correct, then it's going to say correct in this little box down here.